How are we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today I'm going to be recapping UFC Edmonton that just happened. It literally wrapped up about 30 minutes ago. I did pretty good. I'm continuing this little streak that I'm on. I went 10-3 on picks. I don't know how I did on confident picks. I don't even remember which ones were confident picks. I know Brandon Moreno was one of them. Who gives a shit? Let's get into the breakdown. The main event: Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. Honestly, very sick fight. I was super impressed. Not that I was, scared for Brandon Moreno, but I was highly, highly impressed with Brandon in this fight. He just looked stellar, man. There's really no other way to put it. Brandon looked very fucking good against Amir Albazi. And I knew going into this fight, Amir Albazi wasn't going to look as good as he usually does, even though he doesn't always look all that great. He didn't have the greatest performance against Kai France. He still was pretty competitive with him. Going into this fight, he had heart surgery, he had neck and spine surgery or whatever. He was almost paralyzed is what he described it as. I knew he was going to be a lot slower. He wasn't going to be as on point. And Brandon, the big thing was he just looked so much faster than Amir Albazi. And Amir really couldn't get anything going, and it just seemed like he was a deer in the headlights at moment. Brandon Moreno would freeze him up with his shots. His right overhand was landing like a fucking charm. His left hook was beautiful. His switch kicks to the body, switch kicks to the head. He rocked Amir. I want to say, not rocked, but he stunned him like 4 times. He really rocked him like twice. He clipped him with a switch head kick, and I want to say round 2. That set him off a little bit. In round 5, on a scramble exchange where he used the wizard to get back up, Brandon landed a left hook on the exit, and Amir Albazi went all Santiago Ponzinibbio airplane mode on us, where he almost crashed to the floor, but he ended up getting saved by the fence and he still stood up. Amir Albazi is tough. He showed a lot of heart in this fight, but it was just no cigar for Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno, highly, highly more impressed with this performance than his performance against Brandon Royval this February at Mexico City. Just looked way better, looked more on point, wasn't just committing to only one shot. This is the Brandon Moreno that is good. This is the Brandon Moreno of old, where he's throwing in combinations, not only throwing one overhand every 15 or 20 seconds and praying that it lands. He was throwing in combinations, throwing the leg kicks, throwing the switch body kicks and head kicks, using his left hook, using his jab effectively against Amir Albazi. And maybe you could point it to maybe Brandon Royval was just that good on the night that he was flustering Brandon Moreno so much that he couldn't land anything, or he had such a weird style. Or maybe you could attribute to Amir Albazi not being the greatest opponent. Not that Amir Albazi is bad or anything, but I do think that this shouldn't have happened. Not shouldn't have happened. I don't think this should have been his first fight back in this division after all the surgeries he's gone through. I just think that this step up in competition after such a long time off, over a year and a half, having 2 significant surgeries in your life, and your first fight back is Brandon Moreno, and your style isn't going to be really effective. You're not really a great striker. You're all right at striking, but your bread and butter is usually working in the clinch, working on the ground. I just don't think that this fight needed to happen right now. I think Amir Albazi probably should have fought someone lower in the rankings, but that's besides the point. The fight happened. The 4th round was really the only competitive round. Brandon just was landing on all cylinders tonight. Looked very stellar, and I liked what he said post-fight. Brandon Moreno doesn't deserve a title shot yet. Even after a great performance against Amir Albazi, he doesn't deserve it yet. He needs probably one more win. I think a fight you could do with him is you could do, if Kaya Sakura loses but makes it a fun fight against Pantoja, you could do Brandon Moreno Pantoja versus Kaya Sakura. Or you could do him versus Royval or Kai France. Whichever one doesn't get the title shot next, you could do Brandon Moreno versus whoever is the left out guy there. It'll probably be Kai France, if we're being honest. Because Brandon Royval has a win over Moreno and Tatsuro Taira now. I think he's kind of hard to diminish. Even though his fight with Pantoja was boring, it's kind of hard to deny him a title shot. For Amir Albazi, I think you could do him versus a Tyra, versus an Asu Almabayev. You could do one of those guys, because those are or you could do, no, those are probably the only guys, because the Kaikar France rematch doesn't make any sense. So it's either probably going to be him versus Tyra or him versus Asu Almabayev, because Alex Perez is he's not going to fight for a while because of the injury he sustained in June where his knee popped. So we're probably not going to see, but we might not see Amir Albazi for that long. He took quite a bit of damage, so you never know. It was a good fight. I thought this fight was going to be a little, not as entertaining. I thought it would have been a bit more boring. I thought Amir Albazi was going to work the clinch a bit better than he did, if I'm being honest, but Brandon Moreno really nullified all the grappling aspects that Amir Albazi even tried to offer. He didn't offer much in this fight, but what he did offer, Brandon Moreno defended very well. Great performance from Brandon Moreno. We move to the co-main event, Erin Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas. Honestly, I thought this fight was 3 rounds. I think I said that in my picks and breakdown video. I didn't realize this fight was 5 rounds until it just started. So, I was very shocked, if I'm being honest. But, I'm honestly very happy that it was 5 rounds, because Erin Blanchfield didn't really get started until round 3. Rounds 1 and 2 very easily scored for Rose Namajunas, landing the better shots, landing the bigger and better shots. Erin Blanchfield didn't really get anything going. She couldn't get her grappling going. She didn't even shoot a takedown in the first round. Kind of just got outlanded. Round 2, Rose Namajunas actually threw Erin Blanchfield to the ground, and after that I was like, well, Erin's probably not going to win this. Then round 3, she gets a takedown against the fence. Rose Namajunas starts to slow down, which is something we've seen from her at flyweight. It wasn't really apparent in her strawweight days, but at flyweight, seemingly when she goes the distance, she starts to slow down and starts to get wayward with her shots on the feet. She looked very sharp in round 1 and 2, but rounds 3, 4, and 5, her shot selection was kind of poop, and she started to slow down heavily, and Erin Blanchfield started to take her down pretty easily in rounds 4 and 5. Not 4. She didn't get a takedown in 4, but around 5 and 3, she was able to get her takedowns, or takedown rather. But she was able to get in the clinch more effectively is what I mean. Erin, she does still need to work on her striking. That is something that still needs to be helped in the off season. Her striking is still a little wayward, especially in the early rounds. She's very slow, but her cardio looked good. This just shows me that we need her in 5-round fights, if I'm being honest. But also, this doesn't show me that she can beat Manon Fior still. I think Manon Fior still probably beats her. Manon Fior is probably going to be the champ, if we're being honest with ourselves. She is just masculine as fuck. I think the fight that Erin Blanchfield called for after the fact against Alexa Grasso makes a lot of sense. I think that fight makes a lot of sense. Alexa Grasso doesn't deserve a rematch with Valentina Shevchenko. She got 50-45 in an event tailor-made for her. Manon Fior versus Valentina Shevchenko was the fight to make. Erin Blanchfield versus Alexa Grasso. You could put that on... Realistically, you could do that as like a fight night main event, even though I would probably complain about it. That's probably what they would do. Or you could do it as like a main card fight of a pay-per-view. You never know. Or it's either a fight night main event or a pay-per-view main card fight. It's probably what they're going to do with that. But yeah, good not good performance. At the start of the fight, Erin Blanchfield still looked slow. Rounds 3, 4, and 5 were very good for Erin Blanchfield. Rose Namajunas, again, showing at flyweight, she doesn't have a lot of finishing potential, and she isn't as good as I want her to be at flyweight. But I think it's a little too late now to go back down to 115, because I do think she probably loses at 115, because now she's probably... Well, it's not like she's, like, super, like, built for flyweight. She isn't, like, super, like, fit or anything. She's not, like, shredded. She just has, like, a little bit of excess weight. She probably just didn't want to cut weight anymore, so... But yeah, I think Erin Blanchfield, Alexa Grasso. Rose Namajunas, you can honestly do her, rebook her and Macy Barber, or Rose versus Natalia Silva. Those fights make sense. We move to the featured fight. Caio Machado versus Brandon Ribeiro. It's a weird fight. Looking at the numbers, from what I saw, it's a weird fight to score. I can see how they gave it 29-28 Brandon Ribeiro with rounds 1 and 2, just off of the better shots. Because basically the story of this fight is Caio was landing more, but Brennan, when he landed, it seemed better. That's kind of what the story of the fight was. It was a good fight. Not good. It was all right. It was an unranked light heavyweight fight that didn't end in a finish all right. It was pretty mid. The third round was kind of wild, some of the exchanges. I think you could make an argument for Caio Machado, but Brendan got the nod. Happy for him. He needed this. If he probably lost this, he's probably not in the UFC anymore. But he won, so good for him. Caio really couldn't get his hands going. He was constantly not committing to his shots. He was kind of just landing a bunch of kicks. This fight reminded me a lot of Mike Mott versus Trevon Giles, but it was the opposite outcomes for both of those fights, mostly because the guy who was throwing more and landing more just was landing a bit better than what Caio was. So, yeah. Good win for Brandon Ribeiro. You could probably... No, I'm not going to matchmake these guys. We move to the next fight. Ariani de Silva versus Jasmine Jasdivigius. Great fight. Not a great fight, but very cool performance from Jasmine Jasdivigius. The first round was worrying because Ariani... I knew on the feet Ariani was going to be way quicker than Jasmine, and she was for the whole fight. I knew that, but Jasmine, she didn't really shoot a takedown in the first round until the last 30 seconds, and when she did get it, it looked like Ariani was not really going to get back up, and I was like, Jasmine, you're going to have to shoot in the next couple rounds, because Ariani on the ground, she gives up, you can take her down. Rounds 2 and 3, Jasmine Jasdivigius implements a game plan and immediately starts to fold Ariani de Silva. She starts to slow down, starts to throw wayward shots on the feet, leading to takedown attempts. Jasmine Jasdivigius dominates the second round. Some people were saying maybe a possible 10-8 for Jasmine. I don't think so. I don't think there was enough damage. Most of the shots she threw were blocked. But it was a very dominant round, but not a 10-8. Round 3, she doesn't shoot for a takedown immediately. She shoots immediately, but she doesn't get it because Ariani was expecting it. When she does get the takedown, she immediately goes for a Darce choke, and Ariani kind of just gives up. Not gives up, but she kind of just can't get out of it because it was in a weird position. Jasmine collects the legs, and Ariani taps. Great win for Jasmine Jasdivigius. Not ranked, but another ranked win for her. You could probably do her versus, is that Amanda Hebos versus Mackenzie Dern fight at strawweight? Amanda Hebos is ranked at both. Jasmine Casey O'Neill is a cool fight. Casey won her last fight against Luana Santos. Looked pretty solid. It's another ranked fight that you could put on there for that division. Because there's not a lot of people for her to fight up. Like, she already lost to Tracy Cortez. Karine Silva has a fight against number 9. Maybe if Viviane Araújo loses to Karine Silva, you could do Jasmine versus Viviane Araújo. If they haven't fought yet. Which they have not. Okay, then you could do that matchup. All right, we move. 2, Marc-Andre Barrio versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Crazy KO. Marc-Andre slips in like the first 15 seconds. Dustin Stoltzfus holds him down for about 3 minutes. Not 3 minutes, about 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Marc-Andre really can't get back up. And Dustin Stoltzfus gets top mount. Right as he gets top mount, though, Marc-Andre pushes off the cage and gets a scramble going. They scramble to the feet. They're exchanging in dirty boxing. And Marc-Andre and Dustin are just landing on each other. Dustin lands a couple of hooks on Marc-Andre and it freezes him up. And then Marc-Andre throws like a really shitty left hook and Dustin Stoltzfus throws a right hand under it and just clobbers him and knocks him out. lands a couple after shots. Very cool KO for Dustin Stoltzfus. That's going to keep him in the UFC. You know, a guy with a 2-5 record who's always entertaining. This is the type of fight and win that you need if you're Dustin Stoltzfus. Marc-Andre Barrio drops 2, or is that 3 in a row? That's 3 in a row now, because he did lose to Chris Curtis. I forgot about that. 3 in a row. 2 knockout finish losses in a row for Marc-Andre. You don't usually see that for the boy. Pretty brutal ones, too. The Joe Pyfer one was pretty bad, and this honestly looked worse, if I'm being honest, because he, not worse because he woke up quicker, but this one was pretty bad. Great win for Dustin Stoltzfus. Marc-Andre, he's kind of mid. He's mid. That's all you need to really know about him. We move to the start of the main card. Mike Malott versus Trevon Giles. A pretty good fight. Mike Malott won to the unanimous decision, clearly won, based on just volume, and Trevon Giles not throwing enough. It sucks to see Trevon Giles, who is as good as he is, just not throw anything. You know what I mean? When he landed good. It's just he just didn't throw enough. He landed 9 strikes in the first round and 8 in the third. You can't win a round like that, man. Mike Malott had a pretty solid game plan, throwing a lot of body kicks, throwing a lot of head kick attempts. Mixing it up very well was Mike Malott. He wasn't landing a lot of crazy, significant strikes. The one big strike that he did land was like a jumping switch, kick to the chin of Trevon Giles at the end of round 2 that seemingly stumbled him a little bit. But besides that, it was a lot of just pitter-patter and range fighting from Mike Malott, which I like to see. Mike Malott, 100% finish rate going into this. It was kind of make or break for him to get a finish in this fight. Or not make or break. It's always kind of seen as like Mike Malott needs to finish a fight for him to win. His cardio has always been kind of suspect, especially after the Neil Magny fight. He showed pretty good cardio in this fight, though. Even though it was a lower pace, he threw 130 strikes. It wasn't slow or anything, but it was very solid for Mike Malott. Very solid performance. Gets him back in the win column at welterweight. Honestly, Mike Malott, you could reschedule a Gilbert Urbina fight. You could do him versus Kevin Jesse next. I think that fight makes a lot of sense. You could do him versus who were some other welterweights that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe Chidi and Njokuani. You could do him versus strikers like that who will have entertaining fights with him. Good win for Mike Malott. Trevon Giles, just again, holding himself back from competing at a high level. We move to the featured prelim, Aman Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz. Honestly, very good performance from Aman Zahabi, even though I don't really like him all that much. I don't know why I don't like Aman Zahabi. I don't know what it is. I just don't like him. Maybe it's because he reminds me of Ariel Helwani. But I like Ariel Helwani, so I don't know why that would make me hate him. He's just kind of weird. Pedro fought a very weird fight. Didn't throw a lot of leg kicks. Kind of just ran into shots from Aman Zahabi. Aman Zahabi picked him apart with a jab. Basically the entire fight. Landed a lot of good punches. Landed a couple of solid kicks himself. Just very patient performance from Aman Zahabi, countering very well. Pedro didn't really land anything of significance. He landed a lot of jabs on the guard of Aman Zahabi that I'm pretty sure they counted as lands. Pedro was throwing more, but it's just he wasn't landing as much, and he also wasn't landing the significant shots. He ran into jabs. Aman Zahabi fought on the outside almost the entire fight. Threw a couple of good combinations, was kind of jabbing the face off of Pedro Munoz. This is probably it for Pedro. That's probably it, to be honest. Or, hear me out, after Peyton Talbot dispatches of Heoni Barcelos at 311, you could do Peyton Talbot versus Pedro Munoz. I think that fight makes a lot of sense. Pedro Munoz is kind of a name that hardcore guys know. They're like, oh, Pedro, he knocked out Cody Garbrandt one time, so that means he's good. You could do him versus Pedro Munoz. I don't know. I think that fight would be cool. Aman Zahabi, at this point, what is that? 5 in a row for him now? 5 in a row. Couple of finishes. I mean, Javid Basharat and Pedro Munoz back-to-back. With Ricky Tercios in there, Arichi Lang, and Draco. Draco Rodriguez is kind of shit, but Javid and Pedro are good wins. Honestly, you could make an argument that he probably deserves a ranking fight next. Or a shot at the ranking fight next. Maybe you can do him versus Dominic Cruz. Maybe him and Rontel Jackson. I don't know. Bantamweight's a hard division to get in the rankings against because everyone in the rankings at this point is kind of usually going to be fighting up. Besides Kyler Phillips. Fuck Kyler Phillips. You're shit at fighting. I don't know. You're terrible. We move. That's a joke, by the way. Charles Jourdain versus Victor Henry. Charles Jourdain fucking won, dude. Let's fucking go, Charles. This is the boy. The champion is the name. No, that's not the right Charles. I know. But Charles Jourdain looked very good. His boxing looked very crisp. At bantamweight, he looks a lot sharper, looks fast for the division, which was something I went into this fight with a suspicion of. What the fuck? With a suspicion of. I was worried about if Charles was going to maintain his speed and be quick, and he was very quick against Victor Henry. Victor Henry looked all right. He was going for takedowns a lot of the time. Victor really couldn't get a lot going on the feet. Charles Jourdain was kind of circling out a lot of the time, landing solid hooks, kind of tagging him up with a jab, landing some kicks. Victor Henry resorted to wrestling, and in the second round, he started to hold him down a little bit. And I started to get worried because Charles Jourdain was kind of getting held down for a little bit. He went for some submissions that led to him getting taken down. But then he stands back up after a certain scramble and locks in a modified power guillotine. And I mean, Victor Henry is in side control. But Charles just compacts them together. So like his waist is like connected to his hip is connected to his hip. And it just starts to crush the neck of Victor Henry. And Victor Henry has to tap. Great win from Charles Jourdain, bantamweight debut in the UFC. Absolute killer of a win. Victor Henry, I mean, he's all right. He's a solid guy, solid competitor. Bantamweight, he could do Aman Zahabi, Charles Jourdain. How about that? You could do that fight. Or Charles versus Pedro. Oh my God, you could do those fights. Great win for Charles Jourdain. I love seeing the boy Charles win. He's one of my favorite fighters on the roster just because I like his personality. I like his fight style. He's always a guy you can root for. He looks like Frenchie from The Boys as well. So that's also something. We move to Jack Shore versus Youssef Zalal. Woof. The first round, kind of lower paced. Jack Shore and they're kind of bucking. But Jack Shore honestly was getting Youssef in some of the early exchanges. But Youssef Zalal started to slow it down, started to use the clinch a bit better, started laying his own shots. Round 2 starts, and by God, Youssef Zalal timed one of his signature knees up the middle. It was something he did very well against Billy Quarantillo, was when fighters duck, he always times a knee up the middle very well, and that was something that Jack Shore did, was he was ducking, and Youssef Zalal clipped him with a knee, dropped him to the ground. I was surprised the knee didn't knock him out. And gets him in a very deep arm triangle and forces him to tap. Jack Shore loses again at featherweight because you are just fat. No offense, Jack Shore, you aren't a featherweight, bud. You're not a featherweight, man. You need to move back down to bantamweight. I don't care. Or at least put on muscle. For fuck's sake, don't just gain fat. You didn't gain muscle, you just gained fat. We're going to get into fat fucks in this next fight, by the way. But he didn't gain a lot of muscle. But anyways, Youssef Zalal, great win from Youssef Zalal at featherweight. You could, oh boy, let me try and see if I can even get this up. Hold up. Come on. Let me try. Come on. Let me try not to waste so much time. Filters, featherweight, and active. Him versus Hyder Emil would be a very good fight. That was one of the first guys that popped up. Him versus Hyder Emil, that would be a very cool fight. Morgan Charriere, very cool fight. Dude, Joe Anderson Brito as well. off the loss of William Gomez. That'd be a very solid fight. Hakeem Dawodu, what's he doing? Why ain't he fighting? Has he fought since the Cub-Swanson fight? I don't think he has he? Nope. He needs to fight again. We fuck with Hakeem Dawodu around here. Yeah, you got some guys on here. Isaac Dogarian, maybe put two prospects up against each other. Maybe you do like Jamal Emmers, a veteran of the sport. I don't know. There's a lot of guys you can put Youssef Zalal against. Very prominent prospect at featherweight now. He had the weird run at the start where he went 3-3-1. Ever since then, 6-fight win streak, 6 finishes in a row, 3 subs in his second UFC run so far. Jack Shore, Billy Quarantillo, and Jarno Aarons, very solid guys. They're not hard. They're not easy to beat. And Youssef Zalal is making him look easy, dude. So, great win. He's rocking them all around. He's subbing them. He's beating the shit out of them, honestly. Great win for Youssef Zalal. We move to Alexander Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Alexander Blavanov won, dude. I told you he'd do it. Alexander Romanov's the boy. We love tubby Luka Doncic around here, guys. We fuck with fat Luka. Rounds 1 and 2, he kind of just controlled Rodrigo the entire time. Round 1 especially, Rodrigo didn't land anything of note in the first round. It was mostly just Alexander holding him down, kneeing him in the thigh, controlling him, kind of just wasting time. Round 2, kind of the same thing. His grappling wasn't as effective, and honestly, I was scared of the first because he whiffed a couple of takedowns, but then he made Rodrigo whiff on something and then got his back, held him against the cage for a certain amount of time. They got separated because Alexander was just heavy breathing on him in the clinch. But then Alexander started piecing him up on the feet, and then round 3 rolls around. Dude, Rodrigo is shit. He's not good. He is not a good fighter. Alexander Romanov was beating him on the feet the entirety of the third round. Rodrigo Nascimento is poop at fighting. He is shit. He is not good. Alexander didn't slow down as much as I thought he would, honestly. His gas tank actually didn't look as bad as I thought it would. For a guy with tits and a gut like him, I mean, holy fuck. Rodrigo Nascimento proves to me again that he is not good at fighting. He is just a fat guy who fought other fat guys and is better than some other fat guys. So, welcome to the UFC heavyweight division. That guy was ranked number 15 in the world. You're shit at fighting. Get back to the lunch line, fatty. Go eat something. We move to Surrey City versus Garrett Armfield. If I'm being honest, it's an argument that this was a robbery. I'd have to rewatch it. Surrey City won the decision. Round 3 is the clearest round of the fight. Garrett Armfield grounds Surrey City, controls him for almost the entirety of the round, and kind of just lands some shots on the ground. Surrey City only was throwing up some submissions, but they weren't really locked in at all. Garrett Armfield grounds him, holds him down for the entire round. Rounds 2 and 1, or rounds 1 and 2, very close. Round 1 is weird. They both equally land on each other pretty much at the same clip. Garrett was landing some significant shots, though. Surrey City kind of looked weird in this fight. He wasn't pressuring as much. Garrett Armfield was the one pressuring him. Round 2, Garrett Armfield won like the first 3 minutes of it, but then the rest of the round, Surrey City started to pick up the pace and started landing his own shots. And I was like, oh, this is the turning point. I thought you could have given this fight to Garrett Armfield. And that's what I thought it could have. That's what I thought it should have been. Honestly, I thought they were going to give it to Garrett Armfield, but it didn't. I'm not calling it a robbery because I don't actually have like a full opinion on it because I wasn't like fully invested in certain moments in the first round. So I'd have to rewatch it. Same with the first fight of the night. I'll talk about that because a lot of people were saying that was a robbery as well. But it was, yeah. I thought it was a solid fight, though. Surrey City wore another shit ton of damage. Garrett Armfield looked pretty solid down the stretch. His boxing looked very sharp in the first and second round from what I was seeing. His jab worked very well against a taller opponent, nonetheless. Good fight. I'll have to rewatch it to give a definitive breakdown on whether or not Surrey City should have won, or it should have been Garrett Armfield. But, yeah, we move to Chad and Helliger versus Cody Gibson, or as I should say, Cody Gibsonov. Cody Gibson absolutely dominated the grappling in the first 2 rounds. Round 3 was a little shaky because Chad and Helliger started to land a lot of shots on Cody on the feet, but Cody Gibson took him down, held him down, and controlled him for a majority of the round as well. Cody Gibson just looked very solid. He's very big for the weight class. He beat Chad and Helliger as he should have, because Chad and Helliger isn't really all that good in my opinion. But he controlled him, used his size and grappling advantage in this fight. He was chasing subs all day on the ground. He was constantly going for submission attempts in this fight. Mostly arm triangles, and he was jumping on some of them a little early before setting them up. But, yeah, I thought Cody Gibson looked pretty solid for a 37-year-old guy at bantamweight. So, yeah, he'll probably fight in the Apex next. Pretty cool fight. Cody Gibson won, at worst, 29-28 for him. I thought it was probably 30-27. Cool fight. Chad and Helliger probably should not fight anymore, if I'm being honest. Or if he does, go down a weight class, dude. You're fucking 5'6" with like a 64-inch reach, dude. Move down. We move to Jamie Lynn Horth versus Ivana Petrovic, the first fight of the night. I don't even know what to say about this fight. It was a very awkward fight. I don't even really know who won. This fight was super awkward. There was a lot of grappling. Ivana had a lot of control time, but she didn't do a lot of damage. Jamie Lynn Horth was going for a lot of subs that didn't really have a lot of validity on them. Neither of which were landing crazy hard shots on each other. On the feet, though, it seemed like Jamie Lynn Horth was winning most of the exchanges. But I don't know. I don't know who won. I was kind of shocked to hear 30-27. Jamie Lynn Horth, though. I think that's a disgusting criminal card. But, yeah, Jamie Lynn Horth won, I guess. Both of them are not all that good, though. UFC Edmonton. Solid card. Solid card. Main event was better than I expected it to be. Amir Albazi took a lot of damage. Brandon Moreno looked very fucking good. Erin Blanchfield beat Rose Namajunas in a fight I didn't even know was 5 rounds. But I'm glad it was, because it actually helped out my pick a lot. There were some fun fights on here. Jasmine had a very standout performance. Dustin Stoltzfus won. Mike Mott. Charles Jourdain looked good. Youssef Zalal looked very good. You had some decisions on here that were weird. A lot of decisions. You know, you only had, how many finishes? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 finishes out of 13 fights. Not crazy. But, yeah, Derek Lewis also didn't fight, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. UFC Edmonton, like I said, pretty solid card. I'll try and get an upload for you guys this week. I say that every time. Who knows if I'm telling the truth or not. But yeah, this week, at least you know I will hit you with the picks and breakdown. This week we got UFC Vegas 100. Carlos Prates versus Neil Magny, or Magny versus Prates is the actual proper name for it. Some fights on there that are alright. It's a traditional Apex card. But yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.